Greetings, this is Professor Welch again, and we'll be doing our lesson for Module 7, The Impact of Violence. But before I do that, I wanted to go back and review a little bit our Lesson 6, Politics and the Economics, and this was Chapter 16 you would have been reading. But remember, conservatives today try to get back to the pure economy advocated by Adam Smith. Adam Smith, in the book that he wrote, The Wealth of Nations, is referenced today by conservatives. Now, we're looking a little more at week 6, and I wanted to review with you Keynesian, Keynesian, economics, which argued for increased government control of economics, and laissez-faire, Laissez-faire, argues for hands-free. The Keynesian theory was popular from 1945 to 1975. President Jimmy Carter attempted to stimulate the U.S. economy, but this made inflation worse, which caused him to lose the 1980 election. I remember 20% interest rates for home buyers at that time, as well as his malaise, M-A-L-A-I-S-E, speech. Radicals use the term political economy instead of Marxism to describe their critique of capitalism and the inequitable distribution of wealth among nations. Where has communism or socialism been successful in our world today? We've seen the breakup of the Soviet Union and the problems in Venezuela and in Greece collapsing. Do you think the lack of incentives under communism have had any impact? The 1973 Mideast War allowed members of OPEC, OPEC, to quadruple all prices. Between 1965 and 1973, the percentage of Americans living below the poverty line greatly decreased. Now, looking again ahead at Lesson 7, The Impact of Violence, the reading assignment is Chapters 17 and 18. You need to know certain major concepts. The most common response to serious domestic unrest is a military takeover, military takeover. The military is a well-organized group. Terrorism, terrorism, rarely works, but is primarily brought against domestic nations. In reviewing a changing society, when during a time of prosperity, where people are having a period of prosperity, some people get richer faster than others, and so jealousy is aroused. Can you relate to a period where you might have been jealous because others have more money than you have? Do you covet what other people have? Is high unemployment relevant to a civil conflict? Unemployed young men are inclined naturally to relate to unrest. Do you remember reading about when America went into Iraq to capture Saddam Hussein? And the United States fired all of Saddam's elite military guard for the government of Iraqi government, and this caused several young men to be unemployed. The young men were causing great unrest in the country of the fact they were home without work. We saw on the nightly news in the United States a great deal of violence from these young men. Unemployed mothers, desperate for their children, tend to be passive, keeping civil conduct at bay, and tend to take to the streets. If you read world history, you will read about Hitler, how he treated male and female Jews differently when putting them in the railroad cars when they arrived at the gas chambers. What he did is he took the women and children to the gas chambers first, and he kept some men out to do the work of the Germans and to make them slaves. If the man could not work, then they were simply gas. Hitler took total control of the Jews through his extermination orders. This is an example of men and women being treated differently in war and great atrocities of the Hitler administration. There is a rational relationship between a high sense of government and legitimacy among the people and policing. If government is seen as highly legitimate, then there is less money needing to be spent on policing. Accordingly, fewer policemen or women are needed. There are fewer police officers interfering with civilian life because it's simply not necessary. The United Nations and their predecessor was called the League, L-E-A-G-U-E, of Nations, which tried collective security to ensure peace. The League of Nations did not include the United States. In your reading, be sure to review the political scientist Frank, F-R-A-N-K-L, Kingsburg, K-I-N-G-B-E-R-G, Kingsburg, who proposed naval expenditures, annexations, armed expeditions, and diplomatic measures to reveal alternating to aggression and passivity. Some states engage in state-sponsored terrorism despite officially denouncing terrorism. Can you think of some examples? I think how Pakistan accepted large sums of money from America in foreign aid. At the same time, they were harboring bin Laden and speaking against the government of terrorism. American Revolutionary War was against Great Britain and was a revolution that was successful because it ended in a democracy. This was a very successful revolution. America resented British control from the 1960s on. America had settlers who came here because they were religious dissenters and wanted religious freedom. And also land was abundant here, and there was an absence of a privileged class. Do you think this is still true today? And America had many new political ideas of freedom. America in 1963 went behind Saddam Hussein when Saddam's Ba'ath Party seized power for the first time in Iraq. In 1980, the United States and Britain backed Saddam in the war against Iraq.